morning and welcome to World News, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Salia Strzemska. And beginning in the Balkans, as Moldova prepares for a crucial parliamentary election this Sunday, Serbian police have arrested 2 people accused of training Moldovan and Romanian citizens to instigate unrest on election day. That's according to Balkan Insight. Serbian authorities arrested 2 people believed to have organized training sessions in Serbia, teaching Moldovan and Romanian citizens how to resist police more effectively during potential riots on election day in Moldova, scheduled for September 28th. The training reportedly took place between July 16th and September 12th, involving around 150 to 170 individuals. The Serbian Ministry of Justice has indicated it will seek assistance from Moldova to gather evidence and information for the ongoing investigation, as stated in a press release from Serbia's Ministry of the Interior. The upcoming election in Moldova could have significant implications for the country's aspirations to join the European Union. And now on a domestic note, Polish President Karol Nawrocki signed a bill on Friday on welfare provisions for Ukrainian nationals residing in Poland. While making the announcement, his head of office, Zbigniew Bogucki, stated this was the last time the president would do so.
The government bill on assistance to Ukrainian citizens allows for the extension of their stay in Poland and provides benefits, including child benefits amounting to €140 per child, was passed by the Polish parliament last week. At the end of August, the president vetoed the previous version of the amendment, arguing that only Ukrainians who work in Poland should receive the child welfare benefits. After the presidential veto, a new draft was prepared by both the government and the president himself. The bill includes provisions which make the payout of welfare benefits for foreigners conditional on their professional activity in Poland. Additionally, it lays out restrictions on the access of adult Ukrainian citizens to healthcare benefits.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claimed that the drones which reportedly violated Ukraine's airspace could have come from Hungary. This prompted a harsh exchange of words on social media between the Ukrainian president, Hungary's foreign minister Péter Szijjártó, and his Ukrainian counterpart Andriy Sybiha. Here's more.
Following a briefing with the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian army, Alexander Syrsky, President Volodymyr Zelensky shared that reconnaissance drones were spotted near Ukraine's border with Hungary, claiming they belonged to Budapest.
The commander-in-chief also reported on recent drone incidents along the Ukrainian-Hungarian border. Ukrainian forces recorded violations of our airspace by reconnaissance drones, which are likely Hungarian. Preliminary assessments suggest they may have been conducting reconnaissance on the industrial potential of Ukraine's border areas. I instructed that all available information be verified and that urgent reports be made on each recorded incident.
Hungary's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Péter Szijjártó, was quick to respond to the allegation on social media.
President Zelensky is losing his mind to his anti-Hungarian obsession. He's now starting to see things that aren't there.
Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andriy Sybiha, also jumped into the verbal ring.
We are starting to see a lot of things, Peter, including your government's hypocrisy and moral degradation, open and covert work against Ukraine and the rest of Europe, serving as a Kremlin lackey. No amount of your attacks on our president will change what we and everyone see.
The heated exchange follows Kyiv imposing an entry ban on 3 high-ranking Hungarian military officials, a response to a similar ban by Hungary on Ukraine's military officials, as well as months of disputes between Kyiv and Budapest regarding the latter's purchases of Russian energy products.
And beyond the war of words, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán said his country will continue buying Russian energy products. This follows repeated calls from the EU leaders and US President Donald Trump to halt purchases of Russian oil and gas.
In an interview for the Hungarian public radio, Viktor Orbán said that cutting off the energy sources transmitted from Russia would immediately cause a 4% drop in economic production in Hungary. He also added that Hungary doesn't have to respect guidelines laid down by the US, prompting experts to believe that Orbán would choose Russian oil over his relationship with Washington and President Donald Trump. Earlier this week, the American president suggested he might talk to Orbán about cutting off Russian energy supplies, but added on Thursday that Hungary and Slovakia cannot give up purchasing Russian oil, and he would like these countries not to be blamed for this.
Romania is looking to partner with Ukraine to establish domestic drone production, a government source told Reuters. The move comes amid rising tensions on NATO's eastern flank and repeated drone incursions into Romanian airspace. With its extensive experience in drone manufacturing tested on the battlefield, Ukraine is seen as the ideal partner. The official added, however, that setting up an advanced air defense system would be far more challenging and could take several years. The large-scale drone production is expected to be financed through SAFE, an EU rearmament program that will provide Romania with €16 billion. Romanian airspace has been breached by drones more than 20 times in the past 2 years, the latest just a couple of weeks ago. Authorities in Germany's northern Schleswig-Holstein state reported multiple sightings of unidentified drones. This incident follows previous drone incursions into other European countries, believed to be an espionage plot by Russia. German broadcaster NDR, citing authorities in the German city of Kiel, reports that investigations are ongoing and that drone defense systems have been reinforced in coordination with other northern German states. Authorities suspect the drone may be linked to espionage. The airspace above the Danish Aalborg airport was also closed off just days after a previous drone incursion prompted authorities to do so. The NATO response to Russian provocations was sufficient, but the alliance should consider extending its forward presence eastward as a preventative measure, said former US Ambassador to Poland Daniel Fried. This follows repeated incursions of Russian drones and fighter jets into Baltic states' airspace.
Europeans have had to wake up to the fact that Russia really is a threat to their security. But I think that this process of realizing that Russia is not merely misunderstood, it is hostile, is, if not complete, I think it is past a turning point. I think the Germans now have abandoned their previous hopes for endless accommodation of Russia. I think that NATO's response to the drone incursion against Poland was actually adequate. That is, it wasn't simply Polish fighters in the air, it was also Italian AWACS, German Patriots, and Dutch fighters. So I think that the NATO response has been all right. I think that NATO needs to step up its air patrols, and I also think it should consider quite seriously defending forward inside Ukraine, that is, in Ukrainian airspace. If Russia is going to use drones to cross Ukraine and move into Poland, there is no reason that NATO needs to wait for the incursion to take place. It can defend forward from inside Ukraine.
Denmark's Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen said the country doesn't plan to invoke NATO's Article 4, which would lead to alliance-wide consultations on Denmark's safety. This follows drone incursions near civilian and military sites that shut air traffic in the Nordic country earlier this week.
Artikel 4 har været aktiveret 9 gange i hele NATO.
Article 4 has been activated 9 times in the entire lifetime of NATO and twice alone recently in relation to Poland and Estonia. So we have no plans to do that. We are in good contact with all our NATO allies at all levels. And there is full attention to what is happening in Denmark, also an ambition to cooperate on it, so we don't need to hold such a special meeting to ensure this vigilance. I also believe in many ways that what we are experiencing in Denmark and what we have just experienced in other European countries is a wake-up call, just as the war in Ukraine was a wake-up call regarding the importance of Europe taking care of its defense.
Slovakian law will now take precedence over the European Union on matters of national identity. That's according to an amendment to the country's constitution, which passed through parliament on Friday. The regulations cover marriage, gender and adoption and are being described by some as a move towards Russian-style legislation. Kazimierz Łysiak reports.
And just like that, the Slovakian parliament voted through the amendment to the constitution on national identity on Friday. Some of the changes include recognizing only two genders, male and female, and banning single parents from adopting children. The opposition is furious.
It's trying to take Slovakia out of EU and into, I would say, model of Belarus. So kind of a not really democracy, but a country under strong influence of Putin and his regime. You can see that also by who Fico is recently meeting.
Prime Minister Robert Fico, an ally of Russian leader Vladimir Putin, has been taking Slovakia on an increasingly anti-EU course since the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. Mimicking the style of US President Donald Trump, Fico sees anything other than traditional family values as a threat.
Slovakia today said a clear no to progressive experimentation and yes to normality.
These latest changes are likely to raise eyebrows among international human rights observers.
Something that they called kind of national identity, and very vague formulation that the Venice Commission recently has expressed serious concern that these are reminiscent of the changes in Hungary and Russia.
Legal analysts point to the vagueness of this phrasing as a potential problem in the future, while the matters of family, gender and adoption fall under domestic law of EU member states. The ambiguity of some of the wording leaves room for government overreach.
It's a matter of interpretation, how this matter will be interpreted by the top tribunals in Slovakia.
Slovakia and Hungary are two EU members that have recently come under criticism from Washington for purchasing large amounts of Russian oil and gas, fueling Putin's war machine in Ukraine. The amendment on national identity won't do Bratislava any favors in the EU either, especially given the black sheep reputation it already has. For TVP World, I'm Kazimierz Łysiak.
Polish ski mountaineer Andrzej Bargiel has made history by becoming the first person in the world to descend the Mount Everest on skis without supplemental oxygen. The athlete only spent a few minutes on the summit of the world's highest peak before skiing down for 2 days all the way to the base camp.
Skiing from the top of the world is something very few have ever dared to undertake. And until now, no one had skied down Mount Everest without bottled oxygen. Andrzej Bargiel is the first person ever to complete this extraordinary feat.
I wanted to do this for years. I spent 3 months in a tent at the foot of Mount Everest. You need determination to achieve feats like these. Skiing down that peak was a great adventure. It really is a massive mountain, and you become even more aware of its size at this time of year because there's no one else there.
But skiing down was not the only challenge. Getting to the summit in these conditions and without supplementary oxygen required extreme athletic stamina and mental strength. Bargiel spent 16 hours climbing up the so-called death zone, located at over 8,000 meters above sea level, where breathing is nearly impossible.
Only 1.8% of summits were ever achieved without the use of supplemental oxygen. To be able to do this in the autumn climbing season, when we're the only expedition here and you have to set the route, you have to fix the route with the Sherpas and actually find the route to the summit in deep snow without any oxygen, I think it's completely remarkable.
Preparations for the historic descent took weeks, and for Andrzej Bargiel, it took an entire lifetime to gear up for the challenge. That's why after the success, Bargiel's team was bursting with pride and elation. After all, the momentous achievement was not a piece of cake.
You need a lot of experience. I'm 37, and it would have been a difficult thing for me to do earlier in life. You need to be completely independent in the mountains, understand the risks, but also take care of your own safety and surround yourself with the right people.
Andrzej Bargiel's story is one of perseverance. His previous Everest expeditions in 2019 and 2022 were cut short by weather conditions. But the third time really was the charm for Bargiel, whose breathtaking accomplishment will now be chronicled in a documentary, scheduled for release in 2026.
And with this we conclude our news update, but do stay with us. We're going to discuss Moldova with our correspondent in a minute.